No, I called him this time. Right, it appears my signal's being hacked, and I'm not sure how it's happening. So I'm not sure where that all is. Right, not sure how much you all heard. Right. But I have a bombshell to release. Now, you have to understand, Elon Musk is screwing your operational equation. If Elon Musk was truly this intelligent person, because again, when you say AI to Trump, Trump doesn't not sure what it is. He knows some about AI, but there's technical parts of AI, and there's parts of this whole thing that's going to ruin your operational mission. If he was truly smart, it would take an additional time to do this. Because what he needs to do and what he should have done, which he's not doing at all, is take what operational end result that you want. And he has to know, to get to that, he has to know what everybody in government actually does, to include the top secret stuff. And he has to input that. But he not only has to know that, we have to know percentage of the mission. Again, AI may be able to calculate that. But the AI is not there. He has not put one operational requirement in, which means his budget cuts do not consider that the president wants increased deportations. His budget cuts do not and will not consider that the president needs the cartels taken out. In fact, based upon the only thing I can see taking out the cartels being increasing the intelligence mission and the spy mission, he's not even close to that. And we don't know if we realign, what are we going to do with somebody that's a specialist in China if we need them to work in Central and South America? So you froze hires, and we can't even get people in to work that mission in Central and South America, because all the new hires that he's going to get rid of are Chinese people. We can't, maybe some can cross train. I don't know, right? So again, Elon's output does not include what the president wants the government to do. Very ignorant. Very ignorant. Keep messing with my life, all of you. Have fun. He's already screwing up the government, so you can't take out the cartels. Now, is that on purpose? Maybe not Elon, maybe one of them kids. Yeah, they're kids. Some hacker club. I mean, look at Reality Winner. Goes into high security government and begins dismantling the apparatus. And she was caught rather quick. So we don't know if they're trying to scuttle the war on drugs. A lot of people hated that, especially in the tech sector. You tell me they're conservatives, techie conservatives. Do they really exist, or is that just what they latch onto to make more money? Again, we know that Elon was a techie liberal that latched on to liberality to make money. And then tells us everybody else is doing that. And he's going to get rid of that. So again, in the news, if you look, it'll tell you that he's destroying the mechanism that he made all his money under. But you just need to change what you're all doing. First, you need to stop running the employees into the ground. If you have a problem with a person here or a person there, that's your thing. While you're trimming government, you don't talk about it. I mean, 150 tweets a day. What's he on, meth? The president needs to be spoken to, or needs to be it needs to be explained to the president that the cuts are not considering the operational requirement, the end result. Because what it would change where we cut. It may actually cut the rocket program, you see? We don't need a rocket program. If we use his satellites for any of that, he's already got that technology. It's much lower dollar. If you see, that's why he doesn't feed the operational requirement in, or he's just so ignorant he doesn't even know to do that. Final say-so is not good enough. Because obviously final say-so is BS. If you don't know, how do you know? AI has to tell you that, no, don't touch CIA. No, don't touch this place. Oh, if you're going to touch CIA, you got to hire just as many as you're firing, but in a different specialty. Right. I mean, I could already calculate it. Because it's not your war on drugs, it's actually mine. You're all just on the coattails of it with information I put out over the last 10, 20 years. Or I guess 10, 15 years. 15 years. 16 years. 16 years. So you have to stop Elon. Here's another, I don't know if you heard this part, because again, they either hacked me or it wouldn't go back on. Actually, Lindsey Graham's not going to tell you everything, but he could tell you. Ask Lindsey how we did cuts before. We look to see the effect. So what do? We graduate the cuts. We're going to cut this much this year, next year, and then what do we do if it messes the economy up? We stop the cuts. Thank you, Larry. Y'all need to get out of here. You know you're in my life, and that's a metaphysical, right? And a physical, of course, but. Bless you, Larry. So again, I don't want Mr. Ratcliffe to fail, and he's going to be a loyal soldier. I'm retired, I can speak out. I have big hopes for Mr. Ratcliffe and the CIA. Right. Or big hopes, I guess is what you would say, something like that. Big missions, actually, but thank you, Larry. So we have to slow down. But see, I don't know why you're telling me that you'll just look at it and decide it, because you can't. You need AI you should have AI. If you're gonna ask AI for cuts, then you need AI to figure out your operational requirement. And of course, if they can, they'll block this from being, oh, I came up with it. Not Larry, I did. He's just copycatting off of me. That's what they do all the time. Not this time, Larry. Thank you, Larry. So we need to figure out, we need an AI to that'll tell Elon no. Like somebody, independent Elon, take his data, feed it into an operational requirement AI, and watch it laugh. Yeah, resign. It'll type out resign. It'll give you a response. You'll put Elon's cuts into an AI that does an operational assessment and analysis, or analysis assessment, and it'll give you the response back: resigned, resign. There's your response. It resigned. Well, again, there's a lot going on. But one thing you're not doing is considering what you want on the other side. You can't hire them and get cheaper employees like you can in the private sector. Right? You can't bring H-1B in to do those things. Right? So again, Elon had things he could do in his corporations that you can't do in government. So the model he's using on the government is BS. Now, of course, there's fraud, waste, and abuse. So that's allows him to publicize aspects of what he's doing. When they said trim CIA, for what? Now, if you're going to get rid of some of the China oversight, I'd scratch my head and wonder what the motivation is. But especially when people are on payrolls of China. But you do need to increase certain aspects of CIA if you want to get where you want to go. You can't. The military is not going to be able to do it alone. The military is a certain aspect of this, and I think drones are better than SEALs, even though I said SEALs. Right. Unless we do a snatch. Right. We go and say, you're under arrest. Not really. You're just going to go to Gitmo. Right. Which may be the answer. But then again, we don't want to start kidnappings of Americans. So maybe the only way is with a drone and just take them out one by one. And then, of course, there's other ways, like Putin does, or the Ukrainians making it look like Putin. Thank you. Well, I'm just helping you. I mean, if you can't do what he's trying. I don't know if he's telling you something or you just don't know it and you can't see it because you just don't know that part of it. Again, presidents or managers, they don't know every little jot and tittle of every job in the government. Right. And of course, he doesn't know everything about the plan to take out the cartels. But you might need people on the ground, special operators, spycraft operators, that can effectuate some things in Mexico to make some people think twice. Right. Or even just to end something. Like why, these are unlawful enemy combatants. They're killing Americans at a high rate. Correct, my friend. And we just need to end it. Again, it's not just my ex-wife. I got people in my mind. I got their parents in my mind. I got, I know who they are. I'm a psychic. I am a king, so I have people in there connecting to me in that aspect. Right. I think Trump has some of it. He's just not receiving. He doesn't understand. Like my mother was depressed before. And I said, you're not depressed. You're just receiving from a lot of people that are in sad situations because you connect to that thing. Because when she was a medical, a lab technician, she had a lot of connection to people, and she would see kids die of drug overdoses in the emergency room and things like that. So her whole life, she's probably still connected to all that. Right. Yeah, if you'd let me live my life, people would have woke up to what's actually happening in our minds, because there's a brain, but then there's a mind that connects to the world where it can. And it receives and it transmits. And of course, it also connects to Hashem. Hashem being God. So I think because Trump is serious about some things and then it goes in some weird direction, which means he's disconnected, I believe. Right. Well, if the operational computer, again, USAID is, so maybe the State Department could take it over, okay, and whatever it is. But USAID has good parts and bad parts. But you don't know exactly what good part and bad part is until we move down that road, and you're designing cuts and you're allowing people to resign that might actually need to receive a bonus and be retained past their retirement. You understand that? Right. Well, you know, somebody worked for the government 30 years and they're an expert in something in CIA. You start putting bullshit on them, Elon bullshit, they're out the door. They don't need to be here. They're going to go live on some, you know, tropic island. Right. Or tropical island. So the people they're leaving, you know, he's going to make you believe, oh, these are the political enemies. It could be some of our best people that we needed to fight the cartel. Agreed, sir. Well, because they don't need his bullshit. They got money, they got life, they're moving on. Because he's not doing anything but making a mess. He doesn't even know, he doesn't even have the projections operationally of what it's going to cost us if we shut down certain programs. I mean, you could bail out, billionaires globally could bail out Argentina easy. It's not that big. But you're not going to bail out the United States with these billionaires that are up here now. And a lot of them helped bail out Argentina by sending money. Right. Israel sent money. In fact, people are recoiling from the United States and looking at removing money. So again, some of what happened in Argentina was artificial. And the United States is too big for that artificial thing to take place. And in fact, the reverse is starting. People are withdrawing investment from the United States. Again, I'm your best friend. I don't know if you heard me tell you about the micro movements. You know, economic micro movements aren't looking good. And I say micro movements because you move so fast, it's the only way to look at it. Usually, you know, you do these monthly indicators and other things, and right. So some of what happened in, well, again, people are getting, there's friction. The way it's all happening, there's friction with other countries, and they're wondering what they're going to do back. So again, what happened in Argentina was the reverse. Everybody started, you know, all the people that were on that side of the aisle of politics started dumping money into Argentina. You know, I don't know really what Elon's motivations are, but it may have been a personal vendetta, and he wants you to let him do whatever he wants to the government. So he makes up this Argentina thing look good and make you think that that's going to happen here. Or maybe him and some other people. Again, remember, people are kissing your ass. You really don't know the truth. But the truth will set you free. So the cut machine that's cutting all this money has no clue what any of you want operationally. In fact, it could be destroying the possibility that your operational assignment works. I already know the answer that if your operational assignment doesn't work, he'll blame the government employees being lazy. I mean, people don't shoot at you on a Tesla assembly line, so it's safe to sleep there. So again, it's not able to be done. And again, it's almost like sleight of hand when they do it this fast. You don't have time to do anything. Like you don't even know what it's going to do to your operational assignment. That'd be what it's going to do to the economy. So again, Elon's not putting any information. What if the tax base drops because he's doing this? Did you calculate that? Because it's going to drop. Your tax income is going to go down. That's I think one of the things that came up was that Biden had very high revenues. So is it what they call, in part of the French, if it bothers you, mental masturbation, that you're going to do anything? Right. Like I said, if you talk to Lindsey Graham, he'd tell you how they did cuts before. But he's not going to interfere. You don't want to have all that shit on him. But he will stand up for his constituents. Right. I'm telling you right now, Argentina was propped up by conservative nation leaders and billionaires, maybe even multimillionaires. That's how that success story moved so quick. But again, we're much bigger. And, all those tech guys and all those people, they can't prop us up. Is it going to be absolutely failed? No. Why? Because I think you're going to wake up, hopefully. Well, you need to bring your real experts in, like Lindsey Graham. Maybe Mr. Thune been through about a few budget battles. I don't know if he has. I don't know how long he's been in. I know Lindsey's. So you actually he needs to redo what he's doing. And it takes a lot of work to do it. You see, us people in government, we know this. That's why we have a time period that we build up to even beginning to calculate what to cut. Now, again, some of it's obvious, right? But then again, maybe not. Because you don't know what that does to several things. Number one, what it's going to cost if we don't have it. What it's going to cost the government. What it's going to do to the economy. You could cause a recession. But again, I know operationally there's no data operationally going into the cuts. And for a president that wants a lot of output, again, let me tell you what's going on so you understand. You pulled a bunch of people from other agencies so we could do this deportation mission. Now you're going to take people from those agencies because they're going to write, I got money, I'm out of here. Resign. This is going to be a cluster jug for 4 years, at least. CQ Brown's in here. Hexas here too. Hexas ain't going to say nothing. Well, a lot of us were in the military, and maybe it wasn't the budget of the United States, but we know how this works and how they've messed up operations before. Thank you, brother. Now, CQ Brown's going to do what you tell him. He's a soldier or an airman, but he's going to do what you tell him. But he has personal, thoughts on things, right? Because he's been through these things. So what usually happens, again, CQ Brown's helped me with one, and I remember that too, yeah. So what happens is, and he may not know he's in here with me. Right? I'm picking his brain. I'm picking his mind. Okay, so what happens is they have a cut, and then like 4 years later, it costs 10 times as much to fix what the cut broke. And then rehire or repurchase. Right. The Army had a lot of that stuff. We had a downsizing in the Army. That's when I left. They really wanted me to come back as far as, they wanted me to go in the National Guard and made me that I would be available that way. I'm like, I'm in the top 5% of combat engineers. I'm a sapper leader, and you treat me like shit. I may even have been higher than that, but I know I could say I was in the top 5% of combat engineers. I did the work of E7s. I mean, I didn't say anything, but I made my E7s look good. I did part of their job. Now I was E5. You just had to be a face, as long as you were the E7 face, we can make you look good. Right. Bless you, Larry. Yeah, so you have to put something into again, the AI is incomplete. The AI analysis is incomplete. Well, we don't know. We don't know what AID. We don't even know like the stuff that we look at. That's, oh my God, they spent this money on this and that. What that does to the operational assignment. Right. I mean, it may look like the most colossal waste of money in the history of the country, but we don't know what the end result was, operationally. And again, I talk about the deep state paying people. The government got a funky way of paying people. It could be deep undercover. Right. So what you see is a liberal cause, but what's really happening is that person is doing some high intelligence work, and you just blew the way that we would pay them. Well, because when the Biden administration pays somebody, they're not going to pay somebody for a conservative cause. But it's a great cover. Right. But now the whole world's looking at USAID because Elon's in there, and they probably figured it out. I mean, Russians probably always knew. Or Russia always knew. Right. But some of the people that we use that on, so that Al Qaeda doesn't get too big, so the Taliban don't get too, not Taliban anymore, but ISIS doesn't get too big. Well, because they're the eyes and ears, and they call in whoever they need to call in. Handle it. No, I never worked on any of those things, but I'm a government genius. Now I'm telling you, always remember this. I'd be very surprised if preemptory pardons will ever be allowed. Because what you're essentially saying is, this person's not even investigated or charged. I know what Biden's reasoning was, but again, there's remedy for that. And what you're trying to do now is create a special class of people that are exempted from what they do in government or around government or actually anything in their life. Right. So if you took bribes the whole time, the president's about to leave, he pardons everybody, and nobody gets in trouble for bribes. That thwarts separation of powers. So I don't know if you have an operational, again, the operational AI would take a long time to even figure out what to feed into it. Like how to quantify. Maybe the AI could figure the quantification, but again, that could, mess things up. And the people you have on there, they can't quantify. Right. I mean, if somebody tells you the importance of their job, all right. They don't even know. Some of these people don't even know the importance of their job. Well, I've been trying to say all along that you're not considering things operational, but it's a little bit more serious than I thought. because you don't even know what to consider. But let me consider the operation. We understand we don't have a complete plan for intelligence operations required in Mexico for an upscale of that battle against the cartels. No, I mean, everybody knows how hostile takeover and big tech works. Right? Trump's generally not a hostile takeover guy. He just, it's a real estate kingpin. Right? So these other people, so he doesn't know exactly what's going on. If anything fails, you just blame the underlings and start firing people. Right? And then everybody, it's like it's smoke and mirrors. It's a scam. A lot of these people in big tech, they're propped up. But if the way it's constructed is if you want a job in big tech, you're going to deal with certain people or not deal at all. Right. So it's kind of like the big tech mafia. Hostile takeovers are actually like mafia. Regular. A little cool out here. Looks like the sun disappeared. I thought it was going to come back out. I'll have to look. Put my incense out there for Hashem. I think it's actually going to be cloudy for a couple of days. Sure glad I figured out I'm not supposed to take magnesium. Actually, I knew it. They cursed me and my mind blanked on it. In other words, I can't take my allergy medicine I need to take, but I take the thing I wasn't supposed to take because it causes gas. It's like the anti-Beano. Okay, so Christy UM faithfully posting on our operations there. Again, what's the plan? I mean, you're telling they're confessed crimes. Are we deporting or are we going to charge? What are our plans on them? Right. Or are we deferring to Elon to make that decision? Or no, the team. They're going to feed it into Azure and let us know. So what do you think? Well, I think we should deport, obviously, as soon as possible. So again, she's making a case for them going to Guantanamo. I don't think, again, Guantanamo Bay is just like any other detention facility, actually. Right? It's just how you house them. Like, do you put 3 people, 4 people to a cell, or 2 people, or do you put solitary? So again, if it's not solitary, right, then it's not right. It's not Gitmo, which means you're not treating them like the terrorists. So again, that's probably where Christy Noem. I had to look at her name for a second there on a post. That's where she should go next. Well, you don't want to say you're coddling them, because again, party faithful might get mad. But again, you're not. I don't believe you're going to be detaining them with the terrorist Gitmo standard, right? And of course, some of those work their way down by cooperating through the years, right? Well, again, I was a correction officer for a couple of years. So you have your standard of detention, and that really sets the pace. Now, if you don't have recreation, that can make an issue. Again, I'm hoping we don't keep these people all that long. And again, it looks like it's Venezuela, so we need to be in constant contact with Mr. Maduro so he can drill for some more oil. The president wanted oil. I would say one of your best untapped resources. Again, they are drilling, but I think they can drill some more. So if you can work out a deal with Maduro, we can get that extra oil that maybe Saudi Arabia won't do because now they're mad. All right. Now Trump's trying to give me a message. He's saying hi, I guess. Oh, okay, I see. Thank you, Lance. So I know what's going on, kind of, but I don't know if Trump does, because I got his inside. Right. A lot of times, this is why we have friends. That's why they don't let me have friends. Because if you can't figure out, your friend can. So I'm not with Trump. I'm his friend, but... Right. Thank you, Larry. Yeah, we got a lot we got to do. I don't know what to tell you. I think he's doing it too fast. Because I think you have to develop a system of how to articulate the operational requirement to AI before you can do it. Look, you're using AI for cuts. You might as well use AI for operational requirement. All right. Instead of just saying, well, we'll figure it out. I could start to, I guess I could say some of it. Essentially, I guess I did. Right. We don't know what the CIA is going to be required to do, but of course, we know what the CIA can do. Right. And that's going to be required. Military, unless you're planning an all-out war, the military is limited. Correct. The military proper, they have a military arm. I think the military arm would, SAD, Special Activities Division, would be authorized. Again, if I'm not mistaken, that's just kind of like another Delta Force, but a little bit different, right? And that kind of thing. Well, right. The spooks can destroy things to make it more difficult. Hang up phone calls, block internet access. They probably even have satellite phones. Turn off their satellite phones when they need it. Like somebody could be waiting for a command to execute something. CIA doesn't let that command get through. And then the operation falls apart. Or, calling for backup because, the call doesn't go through. Right. But first they have to do a workup to that. And again, they have some information already. Right. Or the lookout, wants to communicate with the boss that something's up. They can cut that off. So, somebody's coming through, Federale's coming through, they can cut that off. And then lookout can't send a message. But again, they have to find all these people and everything, right? And then map it out. And of course, they could just shut down all their phones right before the federales come in, but that might alert them too, right? See, they're a force multiplier. Isn't that what we call it now? Thank you, Larry. Kind of shift my train of thought to my own, their attacks on my life, and yeah, it's not going to work. Thank you, Larry. We just got rid of State Department security contractors. I don't know how many you need to keep and how many you need to get rid of, but I'm sure you need to keep some of them. You're actually making the United States more of a target, and you're decreasing the personnel available to protect it. Now, one of the novel things you're doing is you're pulling the military people in, which they're already getting paid. I explained that to everybody years ago, right? So instead of just sitting at the fort training, they're out there on the border. But possibly, yeah. The other thing came up because I don't know how many military police units you got out there that you haven't used and all that. But if Mr. Mr. Pompeo, what's that guy's name? Mr. Marco Rubio. If Mr. Rubio needs some additional security, the question is whether we can train military police for that, or are they trained sufficiently? They can work in civilian clothes. Now they can't work, I think, in foreign countries. I guess they could, as long as they had a name tag or something, or something identifying. Again, we don't want to do that in executive correction. So I'm not sure exactly what you need and who you're firing. Right. But there may be a military. Well, essentially, I don't know if it's still, if you're in the military and you're in civilian clothes and you're a spy, right? So I don't know how that works if they were to work at an embassy or some other place as executive protection. Again, they would receive additional training, probably. Thank you, Larry. So again, I mean, if you're going to cut, this is like I'm trying to fix the problem a little bit there. I'm doing my AI. All right. If we were to take military police officers and give them a little bit of executive protection training, if that's what the mission might be security, right? If it's security, right, we can use them. Just, the uniform might have to change, might not. You might have to put them in civilian clothes. I don't think outside the United States it should be a problem if they're working a detail. Again, we give because they get diplomatic protection, so I think they're above board as far as being named, right? What's his name? The guy that shot the guy on a motorcycle. He was ex-Army guy. He was still an Army guy, I guess. I can't remember. Special Forces guy that rides the bicycle. Right. He was on the list, right? As diplomat. Was he on the list, or he wasn't on the list? I can't remember if he was receiving diplomatic protection or not. I think that was a problem. He didn't have diplomatic protection. So those are some of the issues we need to look at. Well, again, there's a lot of military police units, right? We'll be able to pull some of those in and help the State Department if we shut down a couple contractors. And again, those people are on the payroll already, right? Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Larry. So there's one of the answers. We can continue with that idea. Now the question is, can we take some military intelligence people? Again, the military intelligence, again, they might be doing actual work, but the military intelligence people in the military are highly cleared. I think they have the highest clearances in the Army, except for somebody that might be specially assigned, right? And you have them in the Air Force. have them in the Navy. And again, that's the other part. You just deployed the Army people. So you could take your SPs, your shore patrol, I guess they call them, and your Air Force security people, if you have extra that are sitting around waiting for a combat mission or something, if we ever went to war or something, you could take them and you could put them and attach them to the State Department. You can increase, because again, the Marines are working with the embassies and stuff, but you could also use the other MPs and probably put them through a course if necessary. And then so again, to get through the budget cuts for the time being, the answer might be to move some more military to other positions of security and things like that. But again, we don't have to just go with Army. We have Marine Corps, we have Navy, we have Air Force. So what you have to do is you have to look at what contracts got canceled. Again, you could reinstate them, but look at what contract. It might be an idea, to look at the contracts that were being canceled for security, right? And see what units you have. Again, there are units when they're in garrison, they're not really patrolling the streets. I mean, they might augment every so often, but they're the combat military police unit, which means they deploy. The other unit usually stays back at the fort when the unit deploys, and they do the police duties, the standard police duties. You also have the Criminal Investigative Division in the Army, and Naval Intelligence. You have all these different organizations, and a lot of them are doing real world missions, but some aren't. Some are available to deploy with the State Department or to the State Department if necessary. So what that would do is that would take people. It would cost a little bit of money to get them there, but it would take people that are already on payroll and give them a job instead of a training scenario. Right. They're always training and doing other things, right? And I realize that they do go out and do stuff every so often. Right? Like the military police will, I think, assist the garrison when they need to, and right. So we could look at the other armed services and see what's available to augment, again, security at State Department facilities. Like maybe, who knows where it is? Who knows what it is? Right? It might just be a few buildings and a compound that needs some security, and we're hiring a contractor when we can just put a couple of military people in there. Right? Now, to get them in there, we might have to change uniform to civilian clothes or something, right? Based upon whatever reasoning. The host nation may say no uniforms, right? No U.S. military uniforms. Right? Again, you would clear it with the host nation. Generally, I don't know if there's places where it would go without doing that. So again, I don't know if I completed the thought. We have people from all these agencies that are out doing the deportee thing. Eventually, they have to return to their other mission. Usually what you do is you hire additional people for that mission. Now, I told you have people in the BOP that they said will be furloughed if the numbers don't go down enough. So what you actually want to do is, because it's probably one of the easiest things to do, is to move some Federal Bureau of Prisons people over to ICE. And depending on what they want to do and what they're qualified for, you give them a position. You have them trained for that position. Again, we'd have to train them. As far as detention officers, like in a detention scenario, bus driving teams, we probably have people that are trained that could cross over. Again, you might even be able to borrow from the Federal Bureau of Prisons right now some of their bus teams. Right? You just have to discuss with the Federal Bureau of Prisons, what can you afford, and could you afford to decrease the bus team? So essentially, I'll explain something. Essentially, the bus teams are on call. if you have a disturbance at a facility, that's the first thing they do. They throw who they believe the troublemakers are, and maybe some other people they've been meaning to get rid of for a while on the bus, and then they drive them where they're going. But it's called diesel therapy. Like they actually might take a circumventus route. They may actually drive the bus a little extra and make them, get on other buses. They go to a facility, they live there for a day or two, then they get back on another bus. So you just drive them around. But those routes are increased when we do that because it's part of kind of a non-articulated disciplinary action. A little bit of discomfort on the bus all the time until they finally get to their new facility, and they might appreciate their new facility a little bit more after riding a bus for a while. Right. So again, the BOP might be able to decrease the amount of transportation it's doing. I don't know. You have to ask them. Right, Federal Bureau of Prisons being the BOP, and then they could possibly give you some teams. Now you have like I don't know if they're still active, but you have Farrington and Fort Dix, and I think there's still 2 open prisons. Farrington's bus team could cover Fort Dix if in an emergency, right? Because they're close enough. Right. And I'm sure there's some other bus teams that could also help, like Lewisburg could get there in a relatively short period of time. So you need to talk to the BOP for bus teams for transportation. So what I may be reading into what you're saying, but you're saying you're running out of detention space, and a lot of times that's because it's a densely populated area, and it's all filled up with all that. So I see again with Elon there, I don't know what your ability to get new detention space is. He's cutting. But what you can do is you could, like the middle of nowhere, you'll find detention space. So you could actually increase detention space probably for a great rate because the middle of nowhere, everything's cheaper. Right? So you can go to the middle of nowhere and find, like, let's say, 3 relatively close detention centers with a smaller population. Again, since people moved out of a lot of those locations and moved to the cities, they may not have as much detention, right? And then you get you sign them up for the detention program, so you get additional beds. But the problem is the transportation. Like the task force out on the street, you need them moved somewhere, and it's just very difficult to get that transportation together. And maybe those beds don't exist yet. And if somebody's going to be deported, I don't know you're releasing people on the border, I guess, at this point, is what they're saying. I'm not sure why, but maybe because there's some amnesty reason that you have to. I don't know. Because I was saying, if you had room down on the border, if you're going to deport them anyway, you just drive them down to the border on a bus. But I guess that would be pretty far. Chicago to the border is probably a 2-day trip, right? And you only do like a 1 day, and then you have to. Okay, yeah, you could do that. You could do a 1-day trip to Oklahoma, right? And then that's the transportation center. You could use the BOP facility also to spend the overnight. They spend the overnight. Could even be a just a common area, a large common area, right? So got to remember, we'll be able to use some of the BOP for the detainees. You just have to keep them separate, right? So, well, the idea is, if you have space available down by like I was just saying, if you have space available down the border, or you can create space with additional tents. Well, Gitmo's a flight. Eventually, you can just move them on to Gitmo, but again, it takes a while. So what you need is you still need CONUS space. Something within the continental United States. Right. I don't know if you want to, they're looking into those things, those sea containers or something. Right. I don't know if that's cheaper than actually, putting up the tent cities. Right. There's also, I think, the ones that use air or whatever. right? There's just a billion different structures. Well, the idea is this: that if you put more housing down by the border, it's closer to the average deportation location. Agreed, Larry. Thank you, Larry. And then you could bust them down there. Just keep these buses running. There's several facilities that probably could house the detainees overnight on a 2-day or 3-day trip. If I'm not mistaken, they can be held at a BOP facility as long as there's separation, right? And there's no contact between a federal inmate and them. Right. Again, the idea is moving them out of our congested areas into our less congested areas. And it may require making additional. Well, you could do it in those areas. You could set up, you might be able to set something up. Right. I don't know if you can or can't. But I think it's better just to move it to the border, move them back towards those nations as you're taking them to. Great. So again, we're not considering the operational requirement in the cuts. And it's just, I know what happens in the government. You end up rehiring. And again, Elon did that already, but why do that? Now, I should have had a great life, and I should have been comfortable doing all of this, not having a bad life to do it. Right. I mean, God's going to get you. I'm waiting on my payment for all the work I've done. Again, that's going to get you also. You need to pay me. Thank you, Lynch. Thank you, Larry. Well, it probably takes a year to even calculate what cuts to do. He's not really doing what he needs to do to make it work operationally. In fact, you haven't even designed the operational assignment yet for the cartel. I mean, because I designed some of it, but you got to come up with specifics. Right. Unless you're planning an all-out war. Right. So as far as moving the prisoners to Gitmo, it's going to take time. Again, Gitmo is just another detention facility. Just because it was used for something else, and again, this should be explained, that a detention facility that is being run like a low security facility or a medium security facility isn't Gitmo as we understand it. Which means they're not being treated like the terrorists. In fact, judges would probably have a little issue with that. even though they have big charges, right? Or big criminal history. Well, I think the numbers you're talking about at Gitmo using, it's not always going to be the worst of the worst. Thank you, Lou. Great, sir. Great, Larry. So we might as well now begin explaining that we could even house families there because we're not putting them in the same cells. You would have to like cordon them off and give them their own section. What I understand is you have a lot of open space. That's what because you're talking about tent cities or maybe the CVAN, right? Well, I think you should explain to the public that they're going to the facility, but it's not the same security arrangement. Right? You don't have them in orange suits. Right? They're not being handcuffed and maybe even shackled to move. Right? Correct. So it's not the same protocol. So just start explaining that to the public because eventually I think you're going to bring whoever there. That's what it sounds like because you don't have any space. Right? Thank you, Larry. So again, it's a good kind of, party faithful kind of thing. But yeah, we got to make it. Wow. But Gitmo is just another, even if it was like high security cells, but if you drop the protocol down and you open up the doors and they get to come out of the cells to have rec, 6 hours a day or whatever it is. Again, they did that at Gitmo, I think. As long as they cooperated, they would give them additional things. Right. Yeah, it's correctional science. Doing great, Larry. Doing great, brother. Of course, I have Hashem with me. But again, Elon's got to get off the government employees. He's taking us down. He needs to stop that because it's going to affect our mission. Give us a thumbs up, Trump. Give us a thumbs up. Nah, I shouldn't have been able to talk to Trump. I mean, they screwed up my life. I never knew what it was about until it happened. Right. Okay. Where's the thumbs up Trump? I don't see it. Oh, there it is. Thanks, Trump. All right, you notice I said Trump. Remember I told you to pay attention to something? I didn't say President Trump, which means they took him out of the presidency again metaphysically. So President Trump, back to president. Thank you, Larry. Yeah, rough off. Well, you don't want the president not being the president, because then we get attacked by foreign nations. People die, or something like that. So the microeconomic indicators, which aren't as accurate as other things, and again, some of the things I'm saying, I'm trying to convert. What I try to do is convert what happened in the mortgage world, in the home sales world, and people moving and owning homes, and what's happened over the last 5 years, because it's different than where we've been before. Like nobody's buying a home or selling a home. Well, people bought and sold a home at such a high rate, you would have some of that naturally anyway. Because now people that would have bought a home in 2 years bought it like 2 years earlier. And now we're in that later time period. So there's a lot less volatility and movement. But again, the whole foreclosure thing, they're saying it's not fully foreclosure, but the indicators are that it's just defaulting has begun. Which, I said possibly and most likely it's the people that gained a little bit extra money by not paying their rent. They were able to buy a house. Right. And again, maybe they sold some money because they saved some money because they, did something different in life and because of COVID and, so some other things in there also. Right. They worked from home and had 5 side jobs. All right. I work from home, but you don't pay me, so it doesn't matter, right? Again, I wouldn't even have to work from home if you didn't do this. I mean, I'd be out there in the world, riding around healing people much more. So we need to look at as far as you know military that could actually help the State Department with additional missions because they already do some of it. So we have people because I don't foresee Trump doing anything combat oriented. So we have combat units that are law enforcement that do mostly training and maybe augment the other law enforcement efforts, every so often, but they don't have to, right? Because they're supposed to be excess and available to deploy on a combat mission versus do police duty in a garrison environment. And you have correctional officers and you have security people. You have Ravens, Air Force Ravens. You may be able to use. I don't know the state of the military, so I can't tell you who's available and who's not available. So again, even though we canceled those contracts, we might be able to augment with military. Again, if it's a regular security type of arrangement, then we got plenty of people that can do it. Yeah. If it's executive protection, then that's probably going to require some training. But then again, there could be people in the military that are already trained up, and are not really doing it. They're just available when it's needed. Thank you, Larry. I don't know. Putin's doing some crazy shit. I don't know what's up. I don't know if he's acting out or what. Right. Well, I don't know what he wants. I'm not seeing any indicators. Again, we're all probably disconnected. Yeah, that's why he did it. Maybe he doesn't know it's just because he's disconnected. Right. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Larry, for everything you do. So, well, Elon's talking shit about us. You might as well talk shit about him, right? Somebody has to, right? But again, he is off track. He doesn't have the operational requirement. Now, what I'm receiving is that that's something people are going to sit down and discuss. But you're using AI for cuts. You should use AI for operational requirement, but that's going to take time. And right. And then the economy, that's coming up already. Like I said, the micro movements are indicating economic issues from layoffs. And again, USAID put money out there and people were hired based upon that money. That money's going by the wayside or something like that. Again, you're going to try to get some of it up on the other side, but again, some of it obviously you won't. Right. A lot of people are going to need some retraining because you're going to decrease the desire for climate type people. And again, these are people. They're part of our nation. They're part of unemployment. They're part of inflation. They're part of everything. So you can poo-poo them all you like and play politics, but it's going to screw up your ability to fix the problem. Yeah, they could retrain in clearing explosives in the Gaza. Well, I just tell you, when Trump floats that thing about building a development for them, nobody believes it because he changed on so much stuff. So it's just really bizarre. Right. Like what they're thinking is, again, you lost their trust. What they're thinking is it's just it's bait. As soon as they move, right, then there's going to be nothing. Right. They go, ha ha, you left the Gaza. I mean, the whole Riviera thing. I mean, well, even if you do it, people. I mean, even if they did it, people are they're just not. They're not in tune with the priorities of the administration. Again, they were in tune with when the priorities. You sent people, or you went and you said something, right? Or Trump said something, and it was their priority, right? But then now they're shifting priorities. I mean, it was part of your platform, but your mandate wasn't a straight mandate. Everybody had their little niche, their little boutique issue that they wanted taken care of, and they can care less. Like you assume that if you do a certain percentage, and then a traditional election, again, right? In a traditional, yeah, I'm a genius then, right? But in a traditional election, your people that support you are closer in ideology, right? You were able to put together this massive coalition, right? And so let's say most people are in tune with 80 to 90% of your platform in a traditional election. This time, no. Some people only cared about 10% of your platform. Some people 30%. So again, shifting priorities does affect them. So it's not a traditional election. It's not going to be a traditional presidency if you want to survive. Hashem's here. Hashem just told me that. Actually, he just plugs it into my head. Hashem and I are one. We think together. Just made some beans and rice, letting it cool. So if you're going to, so people in the CIA are trained. Now they may be working the China mission. The question is, are they retrainable for a South American, Central American mission? And apparently, the heaviest recent hires were China. So if we downsize, again, it doesn't make sense to hire somebody if we don't need to, right? You just retrain them for some other location. But I don't know if that's possible. With some of the people on the Chinese mission, maybe native Chinese. They wouldn't work as well. Oh, if we apply enough pressure, Almento might say that he wants to enter into discussions with the government on maybe, a peace treaty. And he moves on to lawful government. Lawful business. Right. Now, again, you might not want him to do that. You might say, okay, you can invest your money, but we don't want you in business just in case you would start some racketeering or something. So you develop a certain amount of money he has to pay as a fine or fee, restitution. But again, he can't go back to crime or he'll be arrested as soon as possible and incarcerated. Right? Or executed. Or assassinated, I guess they call it. Right. In fact, like if you made a deal with El Mencho, I guarantee if you asked him to speak to the people about why they shouldn't do what he's doing, because he's pretty much inconvenienced right now. That's why he bought the RPGs. Oh, frustrated. Right. Once you're in it, you're in it. You're in it for life. Right? Or generally, that's the way it was. Right. So you might have El Mencho willing to tell the children, you could, or the country, even everybody, recorded messages saying, you don't want to do this. It was the worst choice of my life. Should open the business. And that's the idea of applying pressure. Beans and rice. Getting into the Mexican view here. Thank you, Lawrence. Again, amnesty's a kind of a one-off thing when it comes to the cartels, but it's something I've brought up for many years. Well, the idea also is like they pay a large sums of money to get out of where they are and to get into a program that allows them to at least invest their money, the money that's left. Right. They leave a life of crime. They dismantle their organization. But then he has to deliver the organization. Right. Everybody stands down. That's a big deal. Right. So again, I don't know the validity of it, and we have had trouble with the militia in Colombia. We were, or the paramilitaries in Colombia. We tried to give them normal lives, and we did, and then other people crept up and started doing the same thing. Again, it could just be, they just were lackadaisical in enforcement of the whole thing. Right. Well, the question is, if we dismantle, if we have a voluntary dismantling of El Mencho's network, is it then easier to enforce, that the fact that nobody gets to build something that big? Right. Which means we only have to fight. We'll have to fight their ability to recreate that, which is probably easier than getting rid of the current network. But how many people will go back to the same old thing? Well, yeah, I agree with El Salvador. Right. Well, the only way is probably something like El Salvador. But again, he's proving to the world that they're forward thinking, and they're not just putting people away forever. It's just going to take time to retrain the world or retrain their nation and fix the psychology. Oh, because it's just like a war, right? It's not a law enforcement. I told you before, it's not a law enforcement mission. It's a war. That's why you can't beat the thing in Mexico. Well, because your idea is to take somebody to court. It isn't necessarily that. Right. Kind of a Gitmo type thing. Right. The military tribunals, military prisons. Yeah, man, that's something we can do. But yeah, I believe in offering amnesty at least. Saying we can enter into negotiations. Maybe we can come up with a dollar figure that you remain with and a dollar figure you pay us for restitution and fines and fees. And you get to go invest your money, but you have to live a lawful life for the rest of your life. And there'll be certain actions that will cause a revoking of the amnesty. Right. There might be lower level cartels and operators in the narcotics field that may accept that where he might not. But then again, if El Mencho and 10 of his people or 100 of his people walk off, that might be enough to make it worthwhile. Where the rest of the network, you can't control necessarily. Right? Well, essentially, Mexico has actually like trade schools, tech schools for all this stuff. So, like, when El Mencho comes along, he doesn't need to look up new people necessarily. There are people that, he advertises in whatever way they advertise, and they're available. Right? I need a chemist. I need a welder. I need a machine gunner. Right. So again, the entire skill set of Mexico has been changed. Well, I believe in amnesty, but again, it's a difficult program to manage because we've never done it to begin with. Right. Well, because the amount of money that he gives us, as long as he stops buying RPGs, it's going to be probably so large. Right. You can do a lot with that money. Right. Right. But he's allowed to keep some money and have a real life as long as he stays on the right side of the law. Because I think it's a viable option because, again, they thought when they got into this, after so many years, there's no going back. So you present an option of going back and erasing all those years to a certain degree. I mean, they have to stay on the right side of the law, but and I think, DEA or FBI, was it? Whoever, well, I guess they all, you are discussing things with El Chapo's people and trying to minimize exposure to incarceration for a certain assistance. Right. So again, that's kind of almost same thing, but they still do a little bit of time. But again, as usual, somebody else picks up before you completely complete the loop. Right. Well, I'm going to get off here for a little bit, but I'll be right back on. There is a big need to quickly assess the operational requirements of these future assignments. But again, people just got into their offices. They're in turmoil because we're quote unquote downsizing. But if you don't intelligently downsize, then you run into issues. Again, we don't know even the expense of what happened in Argentina until we get 3 more years down the road or so. Now, again, everybody invested, so it probably will do okay. Well, it's just there's going to be a need for CIA in Central America more so than we have it there now, and a little more operational considerations. I realize we probably tried a lot of different law enforcement methods and creation of law enforcement things and departments over the years. Like I said, the real mission of this thing is a military mission. Not to bring your issue of bringing them to court is noble, but I don't think it's realistic. I think you're dealing with unlawful enemy combatants. I almost forgot my antibiotic. So I think that's what might be causing my infection, is I'm using that magnesium. Right. And it's causing gas to escape up into my sinuses, and that causes, the sinus to be active, and then that gets infected. Stay peaceful, praise God, and all that you do, praise God.